G'day one and all, I'm SouthPawRacer. I spend a lot of time on my channel talking about racetracks, and I've focused almost exclusively on those we find in the real world. But one thing I've wanted to look at for a while is the world of fictional racetracks. In the context of driving games that aim for realism in their physics, fictional tracks have traditionally been the domain of console racers like Gran Turismo and Forza, and the circuits in these games remain close to many hearts today, not least mine. PC simulators have a history of fictional tracks too. For just one example, rFactor 1 shipped with a few entirely fictional venues to race at before the modders came and did their thing as ImageSpace Incorporated intended. But these tracks, along with many other original designs created by community members, have often been glossed over in favor of recreations of real racing facilities from around the world. And I get it. At the end of the day, we're sim racers. I think generally we like the tracks we drive to be based in reality and gravitate towards real tracks, at least on the PC side, because that's where the draw is. That's why we get into it in the first place. But I think if you're not interested in even trying out the fictional tracks available for racing sims, you're missing out, because there's some really good stuff out there. Just to begin with, the work of Doublezero. Doublezero has been designing fictional racetracks for at least the last 6 years, posting on the RaceTrackDesigns subreddit, one of my favorites, under the name Tracksandmax 3D. He simultaneously creates drivable versions of the tracks for Assetto Corsa, the majority of his own design, and a couple recreating designs posted by other users on the subreddit. Though not all of his original designs have been publicly released yet, there's been a steady trickle of them uploaded over the years to Overtake, formerly Race Department. They share a strong core design philosophy and exemplary attention to detail, but I've chosen 3 in particular to wax lyrical about in this video because I think they show best what makes this creator's designs so special. They all have something I don't often see in fictional tracks for racing sims, and that's environmental storytelling of a sort. There are loads of phenomenally produced designs posted to the Reddit community with lore aplenty to accompany the richly detailed 2D images. That being said, it's a rare and beautiful thing when you can put yourself behind the wheel in 3D space and interact with these invented locations, immersing yourself in the fictional micro-universe they build around themselves. You could call it simple scene dressing at the most basic level, but it's far from an afterthought here. All 3 of these circuits display their imagined history front and center if you know where to look and take the creator's intentions and supplementary material in mind. First up, Goria-Thun. An FIA Grade 2 venue with a patchwork of leftover layouts, this track seems like a perfect fit for 1990s DTM and early 2000s GT racing. The geotags that show up in Content Manager place this track somewhere in southern Switzerland, but the locations from which the circuit takes its name don't quite check out. According to Doublezero's post on the RaceTrackDesigns subreddit, this track is located between the Goria Forest to the north and Lake Thun to the south, but I can't find anything relating to a Goria Forest that exists in real life, and the aforementioned geotags point to a location that is southwest of the real Lake Thun, and then I see that the location on the download page is officially listed as none, and then I remember that this is a fictional track freely available for Assetto Corsa, so I probably shouldn't think too hard about it. The track itself is the most important thing here, and it's quite a rollercoaster ride. If Cops and the Beckett's S's at Silverstone slammed 20 protein shakes, then free climbed up the side of El Capitan before wingsuiting back down into a pool of pre-2010 4 Loco, you'd get the opening turns of Goria-Thun. They're fast, bumpy, and treacherous. Turn 3 in particular is a rough one, a blind exit over a crest with the pit lane rejoining the track on the outside. Turn 5 is probably the best hairpin I've ever driven through on a sim. Slightly banked and going through a dip, it launches you uphill towards the first built-in clue to this track's past. The main lap takes you flat out through turn 6, but keep going straight and you'll find an alternate route that is unused. The lore states that Goria-Thun was originally opened as a test track in 1974, and yeah, that checks out with the first part of the lap. It does feel like a track that got its start in the 70s. This abandoned stretch of road apparently fell out of use in 1992. While the simple right-left sequence is a mild curiosity, I have to say I much prefer where the track actually goes. Turns 7 and 8 are my favorite corners. Again, referring to this track's Reddit post, this location was originally a single sweeping bend before the kink of turn 7 was added in 1997. The flow through here is brilliant in a car with downforce, the challenge being to keep your foot in it all the way through turn 8 for the best exit onto the following straight. Off to the left, behind a concrete wall, the original layout splits off. It isn't drivable, at least not without doing a little shimmy into a gap in the wall. There are curbs here and a proper surface, so it's possible that this could be a layout option in a future update of the track. The main route presents us instead with a challenging hairpin that is said to date from 1985 and dives downhill to briefly rejoin the original layout again through turn 12. Almost immediately, there's another detour. According to the lore, turns 13 and 14 date from 2006 and are the newest corners of the lap. They replaced the original 180-degree bend, the remnants of which can still be found in the runoff area. After a double S-bend with some brutal curbs and a tight hairpin from 1993 that goads you into accelerating just a little earlier every time, the lap ends with a chicane, introduced the same year as the hairpin before it. The original final corner is still used for the grid on a standing start, but the tighter turn that replaced it is perhaps the most challenging of all. There's actually a bump on the very inside that will easily spin the car out if you try to take too much of the track. Staying just a little wide and accelerating out, the pit wall rushes up to meet you as you start the lap all over again. And what a lap it is! An addictive design that seems slightly unconventional, yet totally believable. Goria-Thun has received glowing reviews from users on Overtake, and I am inclined to wholeheartedly agree with them. Next, Tukuru Motorplex. This FIA Grade 3 track is a sprawling maze of indeterminate location. The content manager geotags fool us once again. These coordinates put us in southeast Saskatchewan? Looks like Doublezero took this Reddit user's suggestion to heart. I jest, the coordinates don't really matter, they're only there so that plugins like Sol and Custom Shaders Patch can generate appropriate weather conditions, but Tukuru's visual identity remains ambiguous. The curbs are yellow and green, like at Interlagos, and Tucuru is the name of a real town in Guatemala, so that does give me a Central or South American feeling. Reviewers have raised the point, with which I agree, that Tukuru's flow is reminiscent of a Brazilian stock car track in places. But those are some very alpine-looking trees. Oh, look, it's hard to place its geographic location, but I gotta be real with you, this track is just too much fun for any of that to matter. There are 9 official configurations of this facility, including a kart track, and every one of them is a joy to drive. Tukuru is full of sweeping cambered bends, rolling elevation changes, blind entries, and big curbs, with a little dose of janky, mildly dangerous public road in the opening sector of the long layout. And there's a reason for that. Once again, we return to the lore to find that Tukuru apparently started as a giant public road circuit in the 1950s, gradually becoming more of a permanent circuit as time went on, with the layout shortening that comes with it. A similar story to Spa and the Sachsenring in the real world. All around the facility, there are traces left over of the track's former layouts. A diverging path here, a link road there, an absolute maze of different avenues around turn 15 of the long layout. The track doesn't stop you from exploring either. There are no invisible walls keeping you within bounds. Much like Goria-Thun, if there's a gap in a barrier your car can fit in, you can drive through it and beyond. And actually, you don't even need to do that. Doublezero included a hidden layout of Tukuru in the track's files that removes the walls and opens up the full original layout to drive on freely. I won't spoil how to access it here, but read through the discussion thread on the Overtake download page, link in the description. The method is in there. You just gotta rename a certain file. It's an open secret. Speaking of secrets, Tukuru has a few hidden in the surrounding environment. Driving down the highway on the original layout, we see that someone needs a bit of assistance to get back on their way to the loop-de-loop? What? Okay, let's keep going then. Oh, wow. Oh my god. Should I? Should I? Yes, I should. Full blast, let's go. Oh, damn it.
Watch out, watch out, watch out, watch out!
Elsewhere on the public roads, you may find a winding path leading up to a house. I wonder who Bob is. Maybe a reference to Bob's Track Builder? Even if this track was made in 3ds Max, it would make sense to include a nod to the OG dedicated track building program. Needless to say, Doublezero clearly had a lot of fun building Tukuru, just as you'll have a lot of fun driving it. The only part of it I don't love is the final chicane of the main layout, but typical of the best fictional tracks, it's a realistic solution that doesn't feel out of place. Tukuru Motorplex will give you hours of fun. The last track I'll look at today is Doublezero's most recent deep dive into giving a fictional circuit some lore, but it's also kind of his first. Let me explain. Silver Coin Circuit was the second ever track Doublezero uploaded to Overtake back in 2021. It's a nice little club to regional level venue, a diminutive, flowing track that's perfectly suited to lower powered race cars or track day type sessions where you just chuck a road car around. I don't know if it's just me, but this track gives me mild Gran Turismo vibes. I don't think it would be out of place in any of the first 3 Gran Turismos at least. Technical, fun, and over in a flash. But wait a minute, what's this? At turn 6, the straight keeps going beyond the tyre barriers. Well, as we've already seen, Doublezero doesn't tend to place invisible walls, so we can drive past the barriers and have a look at what's on the other side. After some distance, hello there, brake markers, curbs, a chicane. Further up, a hard left turn onto a stretch of public road which takes us across a bridge and to a series of S-bends, apparently long abandoned. Silver Coin Circuit is not just a simple club track in isolation, it's the truncated modern remains of a much larger, much older venue. And it would be another few years before we saw that older venue in action. At the end of 2025, Doublezero released Kameno 1970-71, the fully drivable version of Silver Coin's Out of Bounds Secrets. And I'm of the opinion that this is one of his best tracks yet. It feels right at home in the time period it's ostensibly set in. There's a clear and intentional vibe to it, one of a dangerous, high-speed temporary circuit struggling to adapt and stay relevant, not to mention safe, in a rapidly changing era. Ever quicker cars and tracks that can't evolve fast enough to keep up, with potentially devastating consequences. It really is a snapshot of what the motorsport world was going through at that time, albeit through a fictional lens. The abandoned S-bends off the public road on the Silver Coin map are clearly quite new on Kameno. They must have only been put in a few years before, maybe a decade at most. The shortcut that makes the Silver Coin lap so short is nowhere to be seen in 1971. The pits are on the opposite side of the start-finish straight, and it almost goes without saying, Kameno's curbs and runoff areas are much less forgiving on the section it shares with its modern counterpart. All well and good, but it doesn't end there. If we go back to Silver Coin and head near where the old track rejoins it at the current turn 7, there's another clue. The Kameno track model has this corner as a white-knuckle fast right-hander, but at the same location on the modern track, there's a couple of curbs in the middle of some extra asphalt. This implies that there was at least one other iteration of Kameno after 1971, perhaps in the early 80s if not the late 70s, before it was closed and later reopened as Silver Coin Circuit. It makes complete sense that a chicane would eventually be installed here and that the old circuit would ultimately fall out of use. The hump in the straight afterwards is just an extension of the turn 7 exit at Silver Coin, but with Kameno, it's a very fast run that makes the braking zone super sketchy. And still, there's more to find elsewhere. At the S's on the far side of Kameno, the public road continues on to a 90-degree left-hander, rejoining at the exit of the S's. And at the end of the lap, behind the hairpin with the large tree at its apex, there's an access road that has to be where the track used to go. The circular profile of the last turn is kind of chopped off at entry, but the access road follows the arc perfectly. So that makes at least 2 more layouts of Kameno/Silver Coin that we have yet to see, pre-1970s and post-1970s. It's not often we get to see a track mod for a sim that so clearly hints at its own past and future, that is technically also the past. I hope I'm getting my point across. To put it another way, the idea of a fictional track with a long timeline and versions of it specific to selected eras of motorsport is just something that tickles my neurons. Perhaps the deepest exploration of this idea is one that Doublezero is still working on. Check out his YouTube channel and you'll see several videos of Mount Tempest, a fictional circuit with a sprawling history stretching from before World War II to potentially the present day. Even though the only previews so far have been onboard laps in period cars, I still sense a real atmosphere to Mount Tempest, a culmination of everything Doublezero has explored in his other tracks. Circuits that span different eras of motorsport have a well-worn feel to them, iterative upgrades leaving traces of what used to be there. This place seems to have it all in spades. I know it's still a while away from being done, but I cannot wait for the Mount Tempest project to be finished. When it eventually does see a public release, I'm definitely doing a video on it. I find myself constantly impressed by Doublezero's work. Any fictional track that positions itself as realistic requires knowledge, skill, and original thought. I do hope that by praising this one creator, I don't give the impression that I'm diminishing what other creators do, also on their own time and often for no monetary gain. I just think it's worth noting when a track creator goes that little bit further, puts in that tiny bit more detail, and really justifies their design in the world that it's set in. Doublezero clearly puts a lot of thought into why his tracks are the way they are. It's not a case of just drawing a squiggle on some notepaper, modeling it, and calling it a day. It's so much more than that. His tracks function beautifully as tracks, they're all good core designs, but he flexes his artistic muscles to ensure he also tells the stories of these circuits in plain sight, and you can hear those stories if you just linger on the details a little bit longer. This video was brought to you by my patrons over at patreon.com/SouthPawRacer. A special shout out to my super serious supporters: Addison Gonzalez, Blue Fox 2001, Callum Crayston, Charlie Lord, Cisco Scaramuzza, CJ Flash 99, Crossodog, Jay Kennedy, OG Marina, Paul Smith, Rummy Diver, and Tom Hins. All of the people scrolling by on the right side of screen support me and my content every month, for which I am eternally grateful. They also got to see this video before it went up on YouTube. If you're interested in joining them, consider becoming a patron today. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you at the first corner.